Hello ladies, I hope you're all doing well. I'm honored that you came for a lesson on homemaking and on just self-improvement, and the purpose of these videos is to have a radio program that you could listen to that you don't have to watch. I have my favorites that I like to watch, but they are quite time consuming, and this might get you through a few chores that are a little bit routine or tedious. And just the other day, after I had finished my previous video, somebody commented that they had been able to do clean both their refrigerator and their freezer, which I find those two things rather daunting. I just never want to do them, the fridge and the freezer, and I've almost worked out a method of making it self-cleaning by cleaning it every time I open it up, doing something, because I don't really like the process of taking everything out, and the freezer always gets totally ignored. So it's quite an accomplishment if you can clean your fridge and your freezer while you're listening to this. And so if you have trouble commenting, you may email me and I'll post your comment if you'll indicate that it's a comment for the public. And I don't have comments here on this channel. I'm making these videos for my blog. I'll include a link so you can go over there and listen to it on my page, where you won't have quite so much distraction. And today I have 3 things to talk about as usual. So I would like to show you my teacup first before you go and get about your business. This has a little bit of the beautiful red in it, and it's from Teacup, China, which I got at Home Goods. Now these, if you just type in the name Teacup, S-T-E-C-H-C-O-L, it's from Gracie Bone, China, and if you type that in, sometimes these will come up. I like them because they're beautiful and they look like the elegant antique china, but they are so much more useful, and you can put them in the dishwasher, and I don't normally do that, but they have a bigger handle too. So I always think tea tastes better in one of these cups. I'm sitting in this little room which I think I called it the hunter's room. I had a lot of paraphernalia in here that for boys and young men, and it's the cabin, it's the outdoor room, and it's very tiny. In fact, when I first moved here, I didn't quite know what to do with it, but I knew that if I could fit a bed into it, that's what it would be. It's a little bedroom. And so a lot of people have commented when they've come here that they wouldn't have known quite what to do with this. It was the lady's sewing room her husband had built for her, and but it was too small for a sewing room. The only advantages is they have a window that's low enough that you could sit at a desk or a sewing machine table and look outside. That's nice. One day maybe it will be turned back into a sewing room. So I would like to start out, before you go, of course I've shown you my teacup, and now you may go about your business at home and see how much you can get done while you listen. And so to begin with, I want to start with appearance. I always do that because how many times have I learned my lesson about that? There'll be a day where I'll think, well, I'm just going to go to the kitchen and do a few things that I forgot to do last night, and then I'm going to go get in the bathroom and get my shower and get dressed and start my day. And that will just end up being one thing after another, because my kitchen is right next to my laundry room, and I'll go in there and I'll do something, and then somebody wants something and I'll fix something, and that will be really a disaster of a day for me. That'll be the day that I'll be the most tense. It will be the day where I will be the most upset, the day that I'll be most close to tears, and I should have known, and then eventually I will get dressed if I have a day like that, and suddenly my mind settles down. My heart quits racing. I start to feel more settled. So if you'll take care of your appearance first, it helps also, I think, in the emotional feeling of well-being, which we all long for. We all want that feeling of well-being, of not being worried about anything, of not being pushed. And to get yourself together in appearance will also help you. I think it helps mentally, and it also helps emotionally. It gives you a feeling of that you are ready for anything. So you start off with your appearance. You know, it used to be in the olden days, if you were a wreck, if you showed up as a wreck at work or school or anywhere else, were people questioned your emotional stability. They really did. But now it entered into a phase, an era, and I can't tell you when that happened, but I still remember people questioning other people if they paid any attention to their grooming, if they tried to look put together and sharp and well and excited about life. Their sanity was questioned by the people that didn't believe in dressing up. Now, for the home, if you just have an apron, you can wear just about anything nice because an apron will protect it all. For my homemaking day, I would not wear this jacket. I would just put an apron on over what I have on, but this is just a little bit more formal. But if I wanted to wear the jacket, that would be fine. I have found that the clothes in my closet aren't going to be worn anywhere. I am not going out. We don't really go anywhere that requires really dressy clothing, so I've just started to wear them at home. And I don't want to save them for anything or donate them to Goodwill because Goodwill has enough, and they make a profit off of it, of things that you are giving away. So if someone needs something, of course, I would be happy to part with some of my things. But in the meantime, I am going to wear them in my home. I would encourage you to do that too. Wear good stuff in your home. Make that home your glorious castle. Make it a place of wonderful retreat, like you're attending a retreat. How many times have you ever gone to a retreat? Have any of you ever attended a church ladies retreat where they made everything fine for you? You took your best clothes, and I mean in the older days that was true. Maybe not so much now. But because most people are home now, there's so much possibility for what you can do at home with just the simple fact of your appearance. How you can make that a wonderful, special place to be. And like this morning is this morning is my ladies' retreat, and I'm going to attend my ladies' class. And the next day will be a day for sewing and crafting, and so the next day will be preparation for a tea that I'm going to have. And even if I'm not going to have a tea, I have these wonderful plans in my notebook, and I will go ahead and do them because I'd like to keep in practice. Now, this didn't start just because businesses were shut down or some people were locked down in their homes, because many years ago I learned to do this. Maybe about 40 years ago I learned to do this to stave off unexpected disappointment and failure in some things that I had planned, and I was taught to go ahead and carry out the plan and keep in practice and not worry that no one showed up or that everything was canceled, and record it in your little entertainment book and write down what you had and how you set everything up, and just use it as an event anyway. It can be useful to you. And so for daily life at home, I think that appearance is paramount. I must tell you that now everybody's different. I understand that. But I must tell you that in my own life, on the days when I think that I'm just going to skip it, I'm going to just do what I want to do, that's the day that I wish that I had gotten dressed up, because first of all, it elevates your dignity, your personal dignity. And if somebody around you, whether it's on a text or phone or just in person, is prone to be critical, they're more prone to be that way, and they feel safe in attacking you when you look the least dignified, when you look the most. And they will say, I remember years ago, here's something that happened to me years and years ago. It must have been over 30 years ago, when someone came to the door, and I had just fooled around. It was 10 o'clock. I wasn't dressed. I was still in my robe. Hadn't done anything to my hair. And she came to the door, and she was from, some family members we had and some church members and just a group that we knew. And she said, you look disturbed. And she was serious. She said, you look disturbed. She had come to the door I've forgotten why she came to the door, but I had no warning. And she had come to the door, and I had foolishly answered it. And of course, I had not had my shower, still in my bathrobe. And she said, I've come to talk to you about something. And she said, I wanted to talk to you about your sanity. She says, you look disturbed. Well, of course I did. And I was very young, and it just devastated me. And I went and I said, could you come back another time when I'm dressed? And she said she would. But in the shower, I just wept and cried and wailed because she said I looked disturbed. And sometimes people can put an idea into your head, and you start to question your own sanity. So I think if you could take care of your appearance in the morning, that cuts down on half of the speculation of whether or not you're in your right mind. So I really, really recommend it. Now, one thing I would like to talk to you about is for you older women, and this is for everybody, this class is for everybody. It's for you to put things away, to unload the dishwasher, clean the fridge, sort a box of clothes, hang up all the laundry. Just do those things that are just repetitive. You need a little bit of background, but you can't really watch something. I like to play some of my favorite DVDs in the background wherever I go, but that's a problem sometimes because it's not always convenient to do that. But to listen to something is a little easier, and you can use your phone. But one thing I'm often lecturing the younger women, because now that I'm elderly, I think I'm allowed to do that. And I'm making up for all the times I got lectured when I was really young, lectured as a young woman by the older women. But I'm talking to the older women now, and that is one of the problems. And of course, out west here, we have more of a casual look, a casual appearance. People don't dress up. They don't dress up for church. They don't dress up for weddings. They don't dress up for, they're just likely to show up in their pajamas as anything. So I wanted to talk to the older women, the elderly women, because you've got to be careful to try not to look like a relic from the 60s and 70s and 80s, because there was a time of that era when you were young, when the ladies were wearing the more sporty looking clothing, like pants with the stripe down the side and a top but they were always, black or dark navy with a white stripe, and not particularly flattering to women. And the reason that they're still wearing them, first of all, they got used to them. It felt comfortable, and that's what they're used to. And the other reason was they wanted to look young. They wanted to look sporty. So what better way, it was reason to look young, appear to be young and to feel young, than to wear things that young, sporty people wear. But that doesn't necessarily make you seem young. I watched a program years ago about, some designer had come on one of the chat shows, talk shows, we call them here, and was showing their designs. And then in order to make their designs appealing to people, they were running down the designs of the past and telling women never to wear floral prints, never to wear pastels, never to wear, and it was probably most of the stuff that I like, and never to wear color, only to wear office color, which was the color of office furniture, gray and dark colors and black and industrial looking type colors. And the problem with that is it might, when you're young, you can just wear any color and any kind of thing, even camouflage, and even the greens of the military, the dark olive greens of the military. You can wear that, you can wear those fabrics, and you still look really great. But just because young people wore something back in your day does not mean that it's going to make you look young if you still wear it, because you've aged, and some of these fabrics and some of these colors just make you look dried up and discouraged and very unhealthy. So I want to warn you about that. Try not to look like a relic from the 60s, 70s, and like when you were young, when the casual clothes they wore when you were young, they might not look good on you now. I noticed that even with the nice clothes. I had to be careful of some things that looked really nice when I was 16, but don't look so good on me now. So try not to look like that, because what it will do, it will take away from your appearance and then make you not feel so good. Now, everybody's different. Everybody's different. But I just like to encourage you to dress up and look nice. Wear colors that look good on you now, and designs that look good on you. Also, if you want to be relevant to the next generation, You're going to have to dress in such a way that is dressy and beautiful. And I hate to see the elderly and the older women dressing as though they don't care, dressing as though they've been out digging ditches. A lot of them live in fancy homes. They don't need to dress like that. They can dress in beautiful clothes. They don't have to worry about them getting dirty. I always hear that excuse, well, if you wear, a nice dress, or you wear something nice, or an apron, won't it get dirty? Well, what kind of homes do we live in anyway? This is the year 2020. We have fairly decent homes with clean areas. We don't have dirt floors, and we don't have to worry about that. Besides that, if you get something dirty, you can wash them, or you could be more careful and not get them dirty. So try to dress as though you feel young, and as though you're alert, and that you are reflecting the beauty of God's creation. Now, you can go to for those of you who are just young, or those of you who are older, and you want to take better care of yourself, I really would like to see the older women take better care of themselves. You can go and find many tutorials on videos on the internet, and learn to groom your hair and your face, and learn to dress. And I admit I need to watch some of those. But you can go and take these, pretend courses and just watch a video and learn. And the beauty of these videos these days is you can backtrack them and start over and watch more carefully and try them. And so, because I can remember in the olden days when we had someone come into a home ec class or some other place and try to teach, or maybe some of the churches would have someone come in and try to teach young women how to groom themselves, how to dress modestly, and how to look fresh and nice and cheerful. You took notes, and if you missed anything, you missed it, and they weren't coming back, and you just got what you could absorb mentally. Well, now you can watch something over and over, and you can learn and memorize, so that's such a great advantage. Now, one of the things that I think is really important, right along with appearance, that goes with appearance, is there's no good dressing up if you're also not caring how fit you are and not caring about exercise. I told you before that one of the reasons that I neglected exercise for so many years is I think I was told this in some, I don't know, might have been some kind of ladies class, but that you really didn't, what they were trying to do was discourage you from having to leave your children to go to a gym. A lot of times the only way you could get exercise was go to a gym, and you had to commit yourself to a certain number of days going there, and you had to pay. It was a big problem. It was so inconvenient. And so they would say that you had to do it that way. And of course, going to exercise classes was an advantage because you had a teacher, and then you could all follow along with the teacher. But I think today is so much better because you can watch it on a video and go at your own pace, and you don't have to be self-conscious with the women around you, maybe that you couldn't keep up, or maybe that you were a little overweight. So this is such an advantage to do this, to go to find a video to do some stretches and learn to take care of yourself and be a little more fit, especially as you get older. And don't let yourself, it will help your mind, and don't let yourself go. Now, we were always told that from the time we were very young. Don't let yourself go. But now we see elderly women all around us who could be vital to us in some way and who could be relevant. They've just let themselves go, and it could be discouragement. I watched the neatest video, and couldn't even tell you where it is now, but I might be able to find it and post it for you. A young woman, I guess she was in a kind of a balcony apartment it looked like it was California, and she posted the most interesting series of videos called How I Got My Life Together, or something like that, and how during this shutdown, when she couldn't go anywhere and she was alone much of the time, she had gotten in a habit of just laying around all the time and not getting dressed and just not doing anything. So she decided one day to get her life back together, and she began with her appearance, and she had a great video of her changing, about how, it showed first her kind of flopping around on the couch and not caring, and then she decided one day she needed to get busy and get herself on some kind of a self imposed program. And I just enjoyed watching it. I told you I like to see what the younger people are doing. She was so smart and so innovative, and she said she started out with her appearance. That's what she started with, and she said if you are discouraged and you lay around a lot, it will start having its bearing on your appearance. You'll start looking like how you feel. So what she did was she changed how she looked, and it helped a little bit about how she felt. And then she took you through her day of what she was going to do, and how she watered her plants next, and how she cleaned her sink next, and how she cut some herbs so she could have a bath later on. It was just a very interesting thing. But her comment on that in the beginning was, pretty soon you're going to start, your appearance will start looking about the way you're thinking, and it will not be so good. And it just showed how she took herself through a course of changes. And I think it was something about, getting your life back together. I was quite impressed with it. What a great idea. And she had, day 1, day 2, day 3, and what she had made herself a schedule of how she was going to have to get herself going so that she could get some ambition back, develop her skills and talents, learn about things to do, and just carry herself through this period of time. And one of the things I'd like to tell you about the online exercise classes is, first of all, there are some disadvantages to them. First of all, you've got to listen to a lot of background noise. I'm distracted by noisy type of music and background noise. Even when I was out shopping or in a grocery store, the music bothered me. It was so noisy, and I found it hard to concentrate. And so I had to turn off the volume in order to do the exercises. Then there's the other problem of finding an exercise instructor who isn't showing too much bareness, that especially some of us who are older now, and we're a little more self-conscious about it, and trying to find an exercise instructor who dresses fairly, covers herself fairly modestly. And the other thing is finding an exercise instructor. If you're listening to it and listening to how to do the exercises, they often insert their own mantras and their own sayings to help motivate you, and many times they are things that are not quite in line with what you believe. And although they wouldn't influence me in any ways, in some ways I dislike having too much of that in my head. And so what I decided to do was look up, you remember I showed you these books for teenagers called Man in Demand and Christian Charm Course, and I showed you the boys' exercises. They were drawn and they were illustrated, and this was the girls' exercises. And you probably have books, old books, that are on health that have drawings, maybe stick figures of exercises. And recently, a member of my family, went to a physical therapist, for a back problem they were having, and this physical therapist gave them a piece of paper with 3 or 4 exercises drawn on them. Now this to me is the most effective way to exercise, because you can choose how many times to do it, and they are very well illustrated, and you don't have to look at somebody else or be influenced by, I don't know, their philosophy, or be too emotionally upset by their banging and clanging in the background to help you keep a beat. And so let's go back, because when it all comes down to it, there's just you and there's just God. And when you're living maybe more isolated, you're going to have to figure out how to do some things without being dependent on videos, because you never know when maybe you can't see them, or it doesn't work, or they've been taken off. And so you can, even what I have done is I've done a lot of these exercises online and followed the lady that's leading them, and then I've memorized them. So I just do a little stick figure of what they are and make myself a list of how to do them. So I want to read some of these. I want to read the instructions on some of these. These helped us way back in the day. Number 1, tiptoe around the room, reaching for the ceiling, and stretch. It doesn't say how many times, but they just recommend you increase it until you have had enough. Number 2, keep your knees straight and bend down and touch your toes 10 times. And they recommend that you bounce a little bit and touch the floor several times. Number 3, hold on to the back of a chair, kick each leg back and forth. Number 4, stretch arms out, twist and bend to touch the opposite toe. That's called the crossover. Number 5, sit with feet crossed and hands on knees and rock back and forth. Number 6, lie on floor and bicycle. Now, I don't know anybody that can still do that, but just laying on the floor and moving your legs is very valuable. So I just wanted to tell you about that you can develop your own routines without dependence on teachers. And one of the things about classes, even some of the classes I have taken, art classes or language classes, when you get on Zoom or you get online, you always have this problem with people talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. People just get to talking and then they start running down things that you believe in, and it becomes intolerable to go. And I mean, any class, even before this era, you could take a quilting class or you could take a knitting class, and before too long, some of the women in those classes were talking about things that if you'd taken your daughter there, you really wouldn't want them to be talking about those things around her. And just, general worldly stuff about things that they had done or whatever. And so if you could learn to be a do-it-yourselfer, a self-employed, and if you want to learn to do something, perhaps you could use a book, and perhaps you could write, or you could go, I used to go take courses. Back in the day, I used to go and take a course, and then I would take notes, and then I would come home and write them down in a little notebook, and then I knew how to do them myself, and I knew how to teach them. So that way, I didn't have to always go out and be dependent on other people. You can learn from other ways. Okay, so now we're going to work on the home and work on the house. And if you've got something to do like the kitchen, I like to keep that clean. So by the end of the day, I want to have totally the kitchen cleaned up and the sink totally clean, nothing in it. But of course, if I go to bed rather early and there are other people still around, they will probably not load the dishwasher and just kind of leave it in the sink, but that doesn't matter. I like to, at the end of the day, have that dishwasher partially loaded so that the next day I can turn it on, or I like to have it loaded and going by the time I'm in bed. I kind of like to lay in bed at night and hear that dishwasher roar. It's a sign of this wonderful era we live in, that we can have a dishwasher. It gets them so squeaky clean and sanitary. I just love it. Now, one of the things that that helps in housekeeping, it's a grueling job, I have to admit. It's hard work. But one of the things that makes it so delightful, and we learned this, I think, over the years from maybe our grandmothers, what made their houses so charming? What made their houses so nice? And the things that they displayed so sweet? Because it kind of gives us permission. When the first Victoria came out, and the Emily Barnes books and Home Interiors and some of these other things came out in the 1980s, it gave those of us who were living in little shanties and the manse and different places that were less than ideal for homes, it gave us permission to use things that our grandmothers used, the little vases and doilies and the little interesting touches on things that made you feel that you were living more high-end. And it really was a sweet way to look at the home, to look at things that you could do, baskets of books and flowers and things and plants and things like that. And so I think that adding all this to it actually helps in the grueling work. After you've cleaned a bathroom, it's nice to be thinking about it while you're, in fact, in the exercise classes, there's one instructor that says, while you're doing this exercise, think about how you're going to improve your life in some way. So, while you're cleaning the bathroom, think about how you're going to add something to that to give it a little bit of extra appeal. And it's nice to be a guest in your own home. Think about what would you like if you were a guest here. So those motivating things are very, very helpful. Of course, we're all capable of just doing the job and getting by, but it doesn't bring a lot of satisfaction. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about when it comes to people, one of the things that I want to talk about when it comes to people, it usually takes me about half an hour to get through the people part, because generally we have to work around the people and not appear as though we're working. But I used to like to walk through the house and kind of check on everybody, see what they're doing, but at the same time my eyes would be kind of roaming around the hall and the rooms and thinking what needed to be done. And I'd just quietly go pick up something while I asked how they were doing, or were they hungry, or tell them, lunch will be in about 15 minutes. And so that it didn't look like I was in a fury, or, cleaning in a fury. And all of you can probably remember mothers and grandmothers who, when they had a cleaning day, were grumpy about it. And it really turned a lot of young women off of cleaning house, because they didn't enjoy the atmosphere that these homemakers created in their house cleaning. They just seemed to be upset about it all the time and chewing everybody out for messing up the house. But anytime you have people, now you look at a grand hotel, do those hired people go around, the ones that clean it, go around and complain loudly about to the customers about how they messed up one of the hotel rooms, left the sink dirty or something like that? No, they just do their job. And so everybody, of course, we teach them to clean up after themselves and make, especially if there's common places that we have, and they don't have their own bathrooms and they share certain rooms, to make it pleasant for the next person that comes in. And that's very helpful too. But it's very important to have a good mood when you're cleaning and to enjoy it. And that's why I think it's important to dress up, and it's important to have something pleasant going on in the background, whether it's music, that's your favorite music, or singing that you do personally, or talking to someone on the phone. Now, one of the things we used to like about talking on the phone, we used to get these really long cords. And if someone phoned and you could tell they wanted to talk a while, you had a way of, there were things that you could do. In fact, even I think in some of the ladies' magazines, they had articles like things you can do while you're talking on the phone. You can clean out a drawer. You can put away something. You can fold the laundry. You could just about do everything but vacuum. So these are some pleasant things. Sometimes people will call and just want to talk because they have some grueling job to be done, and it helps them pass the time away, and in a more pleasant way to talk to someone that they like to talk to. I'll often have my favorite video playing in the background, although I don't watch it. I like to hear the script. And of course, like a lot of you, I have some of these things memorized, whole movies memorized. Now, I also have, when we get to people, talking about people because we're working around them, that the young and old should always interact. We all have the same, we all breathe air, we all like to eat, we all like to sleep in a nice comfy bed, we like to have laundry, and we have a lot in common. And the young should be there to encourage the old, and the older are there to encourage the young. We just build one another up. And the Bible doesn't really divide this age group mentality that goes on all the time. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but people have an age group mentality that they only want to be around people their own age, including the elderly. They'd rather just be around people their own age when we all need to interact together. And I think God has a purpose for that, because one side benefits from the vitality of the other side, and the other side benefits from the stability of the other side. And they all work, families are created at different ages. You don't just have a family of 20-year-olds or 10-year-olds. You have a family of different ages, including the parents. The parents are different age than the children. And it's all designed for us to interact and work together for God's purpose and God's glory in the home. So avoid age group mentality. If you get into age group mentality, the kids all start speaking a different a different language, and we all need to be able to edify one another. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about people problems, and one of the ways that we can avoid criticism and having someone talk about us. I just was thinking about that today, that you could say something quite innocently, and because you're being honest, you think, well, I'm just being honest. Nothing bad will happen to you, but there are people who are unscrupulous or immature, will spread something that can harm you for a long time, and harm your family, harm your husband, and really, if you're in a church, can also be bad for the church too. Now, I'll give you an example here. Somebody comes to see you, or they're on the phone or text, and somebody says, well, how do you get along at home? You seem like such a perfect family. How do you get along at home? Well, of course, you don't want to sound conceited or anything, so you text back, or you say back on the phone, or maybe you're visiting. You say, oh, well, we're not perfect, I have my differences with somebody, and mention somebody in the family, and they will run with it. They will go and they'll talk to other people, and pretty soon they have smeared you and made you have a reputation of, oh, she doesn't really get along with her family. It's all a farce. It's all a sham. So you say to yourself, well, I was just telling the truth. I was just being honest. You have to be really careful what you say to people. Now, you could be a homemaker and think, well, nobody bothers me. That never happens. You don't know that if it could happen. That doesn't mean you should be careless. And you need to teach your children not to say things to other people outside of the family that would damage your husband's job, your reputation, that sort of thing. For instance, if he hears his parents having a very lively discussion about something, and they're disagreeing about something, and they're working it out, they're working it out, but the child goes to someone else and says, my mom and dad just fight all the time. That kind of thing can get spread all over the place, and someone will say, well, they're just being honest. You have to be really careful what you say. I know a lot of ladies complain because you get these arguers, and you get these people that always want to dig a little further and kind of find something out about you that's flawed for some reason. And they'll say, well, I don't have anything to hide. Well, even the most innocent thing is privacy. We don't have anything to hide but our privacy. It's like people who say that they don't feel they have to dress modestly because they don't have anything to hide. Well, maybe we do have something to hide. We have to hide our privacy. And that's one of the reasons I said that one of the advantages of exercising at home with with a drawing or a chart, is that you're not exposed to people around you who know your weaknesses, who knows maybe you can't really keep up with these exercises, and you're not very graceful, and you're rather awkward in it all, and it keeps you from being exposed to gossip. And so sometimes we have to just really watch ourselves, watch what we say, and keep from being exposed to gossip. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to homeschool my children, was because I saw when I was growing up in the public school how exposed you are to your weaknesses are exposed, and it's during your developing years when you might overcome those weaknesses, but you can develop a reputation. Maybe you don't keep up athletically in the physical education class, and so people will call you weak. Maybe somebody will call you weak, and so you get the reputation of being frail and weak, and you never really can live it down. But in the meantime, maybe you grew up a little bit and got a little stronger. I'm just using that as an example. I can't think of anything else right now. But to expose yourself to a large group of people during your formative years is not really good, because you could change. And they like to peg you as a certain type of person. That's another thing I don't like, is these people that go around typing people like they have a certain personality types. And I was reading something the other day that was in someone's book where they had adopted these 4 personality types from the Greek. It was Greek psychology from way back in the olden days, I don't know, ancient times. And they had these 4 types of personalities. But when you read the Bible, you'll find out there are many more personalities, and that God can also change if you align your heart with the teachings of Christ, how your personality is designed to be more Christ-like. So we don't really have a permission from God to type people's personalities and call them one of the four major personality types. And that's one of the reasons that I object to certain books that come out that call themselves Christian books, is they often will resort to this psychological branding of certain personalities. Because, for instance, if you meet a real talkative person and you say, oh, that person's talkative, and then they decide they want to change that, and they maybe put themselves on some kind of rigorous self-training and decide they're not going to talk so much, you can't go around saying they're talkers, you know. So anyway, that's just my opinion. And this whole thing, this whole Homemakers Radio is designed to listen to, but it's also part of my expressing my free speech, and it's for the record. It's for my children and grandchildren that might want to hear it someday. Maybe it would be helpful, maybe it wouldn't, and not everybody is the same. So I'm not saying this applies to everybody. So we have a political situation, and someone's always bringing it up, and I made it a kind of a habit not to repeat anything I've heard on the news or anything that comes to my ears on the news or anything I see on the web that's in the news, because it's broadcast everywhere and they've already heard it. So I don't need to repeat it, and I don't want to discuss it. There are other things. So what I do when someone calls me and wants to know if I'm worried about the current political situation, I will tell them I'm not going to go on about it, and I'm not going to be concerned about it because it won't help me get my house in order. And as you know, I have, quote, that room that I'm still working on, that's the garage. It's also a bedroom that has a lot of things in it that I want to sort out. And so I don't want to be too concerned about that. And I've decided to make a 3-day challenge, and I thought maybe I might share it with you and maybe put it on my blog so that you could do it too, because a lot of the exercise groups and even art groups have challenges, you know, like a 3-day challenge for these 3 different kinds of exercises for 3 days. And so I thought I would have myself a 3-day challenge of hopeful thinking. So I have a 3-day challenge of hopeful thinking, and day 1 will be think about if something's bothering me and I'm thinking about it, ask, is it a good thing to think about? And the other thing is to ask if it's wise and if it's lovely, and to change the thinking into something more positive. And also to declutter, because decluttering helps clear your mind, to declutter. Now, decluttering in the home is going around and taking things that do not belong to that theme or that area or the function of that room and taking them out of there. It also could be taking away things that are part of the decor, but it just makes it a little bit too much, too cluttered, so that you have space to look at. And years ago, I went to a home decorating class, and there's different eras and different styles but this was the style that they were believing right then, and it really did help me. And it said have no more than 1 or 2 things on a table, and like on an end table there'd be a lamp and one other thing. And so I've tried to stick with that, but it doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to everyone. But the 3-day challenge was to think straight, and to declutter, and to breathe. And you know, whenever you've heard something that's distressing, you really might not realize that you've stopped breathing. And there's this little meter that you can get. I guess you attach it to one of your fingers or somewhere on your body, and it helps you see when you've stopped breathing. The colors change or something like that. I don't have one. But you might be more conscious of how you're not breathing. And breathing helps your body so much. And God breathed into you the breath of life, and He wants you to breathe. He gave you the breath of life, and breathing is so important. Bad news can sometimes make us stop breathing, whether it's family upheaval or it's the political situation and the news that you hear. And so breathe. So I have my first day of the 3-day challenge, and that is to think straight, by asking about some horrible thought or some fear and dread that comes into my mind, and think, is this a good and lovely thing to think about? And then thinking about the good and the lovely instead of something else, thinking about something else. And it's very similar to the exercises. While you're doing this exercise, think about what you're going to do today that's good. And so while you're working in your housework, think about something that you're going to do today that's good and that's pleasing and that gives you a sense of well-being. And the second one was to declutter. The third one was to breathe. This is just day one of this challenge. I haven't thought about the other days, but the other one was to breathe. And the last one was to make a list for tomorrow. Now, even if you don't get these things really completed, it's very good for the mind and for the thinking, and to feel less than disorganized, to feel more organized, to actually list it. And listing is, I think, very therapeutic in a way too. And I'm very good at it. I can list 100 things that need to be done, but I only do one of them, if at all. But one of the things that I have Fly Lady on my sidebar. I haven't started following her program yet. She'll have maybe 1 week that will be the living room week, and she'll have various areas of your living room to do that week besides your daily work, besides your dishes, besides your bathroom. And she will choose a room each week. I'd like to get on that, but I have to use every spare moment for a few other disasters in my house. And when I get all those cleaned up, then I'm going to start following her program a little more. But in the beginning, when it was called Sidetracked Home Executives by Pam and Peggy Bryce, back in the 70s, I read the book, and they had you make a master list. And the master list was for ladies who were so overwhelmed and rather confused, just to list everything they saw that needed to be done. And so we would go into one room, the living room, and we'd just write down everything that needed to be done in the living room. And then we'd go into another room, write down everything that needed to be done. You didn't have to do it, just write it all down. And then you would put it into categories of, forget exactly what the categories were, but some were seasonal, and some were weekly, and some were monthly, and some were daily, and some would have to be done at another time. And then you would have to color code it all by putting your color marker. Like if you wanted to get this done every week, you should a different color, and then you would put it all on different cards. And it was rather complicated. It was more of like an office style, but I liked the idea anyway of a master list. And in the back of my book, I have my master list, and that I'll look at that every now and then. And in my daily list, I will say, look at master list today, just to see if there's one thing that I could do. And one of the things I have to do is to clean the chairs and paint the door. But I haven't done those yet. Those are big projects, and you have to have a nice dry day when you're going to do some of these things. But have a master list, and that kind of settles you a little bit. And there are a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about keeping your home. And one thing that I'd like to end with today is about how important it is as a Christian woman to be responsible in some way for what's going on financially in your home, to know what your income is, to know what has to go out, and to know where the money is going. Now, I know there are a lot of Christian lady teachers who believe that it's none of the woman at home's business. Her only business is just, keep house and make everybody happy. But it is very important to be in touch with, because as good stewards and as good helpmates, you're not a helper if you're passive and you're letting money go out to things that probably don't benefit the family. And you've got to be careful that people don't take advantage of your husband. If he's a kind man, he's likely, some of them, women have to be good warnings instruments for their husbands, to make sure they don't get caught up in schemes and things, to be able to research things so that money doesn't go out that belongs to you, that belongs to the family, that will enrich the family. The family is the most important. Sometimes women will find that that money is gone and wonder what happened to it, and find out much, much later how someone, I guess, took advantage of your husband. So you really should really know what the income is and what it's going for and how much. You know, I've seen women also, even in the church, who were very frugal, and they really self-sacrificed a lot. They bought used clothing, they sewed their own, they took shortcuts everywhere, and they were very careful not to spend money. And in the meantime, someone who saw them, you know, living frugally and everything, knew that they had quite savings because of it, and wanted to sell them something. And so the women had to intervene, because these people can take advantage of a family. And I mean, it's hard to explain, but some of you might have had the same experience. We just really have to be watchful and watch the income. We're supposed to guard the home. We're supposed to guide the home. And that's part of it. You have to be watchful about the income and make sure that there's going to be, you're protecting yourself really, so that you'll have a home and that it won't be taken out from under you. And so the family has the comforts of life, and that there's money for the children, and that they don't get cheated out of it by making someone else have it. Remember in Wives and Daughters when Molly said, well, Papa says that there are some men who are unscrupulous, who will gain a good man's trust and use it to ruin him. And I always think about that when I think about when people tell us that we don't need to know anything about the money. You know, don't worry yourself about the money. You really need to at least know about it if you're wise, if you want to be wise. So ladies, I hope that this has cheered you up and not been too depressing. I did mention a few things that weren't too pleasant, but so today my challenge for myself is to think on the bright side of something, and the way to do that is to quickly revert your mind over to something that's pleasant. Whenever you think of something that is worrisome or that is makes you tense and unhappy, that you can't do anything about, quickly think over to something that you would like it to be, or to be pleasant. So train your mind that way. If you train your mind several times a day like that, pretty soon you're out of the habit of thinking on the dark side. The other thing is to declutter. And I love taking a trip through the house and just going and just looking and kind of pulling something out and decluttering. And the other thing is to breathe. That's so important. It gives you so much health to breathe, and make a list for tomorrow. I might want to add on exercise. Just pick out some drawing that you have in a book, or draw yourself out some exercises, and do exercise, because it helps your body and your mind. So I hope to see you next time, and thank you all for your emails and your comments, and for all you do for me, for your prayers. And some of you have sent nice contributions, and they're a great help. So I wanted to thank you for that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.